Hi, Natalie.
Hi, morning
How
ish.
are you?
Morning where you are.
Very good. It's working, right? So, just for you to
Yep,
know, the attendees are not going to be able to talk.
yep.
Okay. So any questions they have, they will have to type them. Okay. So on
That's fine.
screen, it will only be you and me.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep,
And that's it.
no.
Okay. So, I'm going to mute myself and take out the video until we start. Okay. So
Okay,
let's wait like 5 minutes or so. Thank you.
cool.
Hello everyone. Welcome to our fourth session of our MEVCA Future Readiness series, where we try to help our ecosystem, private capital markets in the Middle East, foresee and evaluate the company decisions from a right angle, trying to bring perspective from peers in the industry. For those of you who don't know me, I am Paula Mateos, Executive Director of MEVCA. Today, we will have a conversation with Nathalie Spree on what's happening on the ground within teams, how to approach headcount reductions and restructuring, and the key levers to manage people cost beyond layoffs. We'll also cover how to retain critical talent, handle remote work complexities, and lead effectively through uncertainty. Natalie is an accomplished people and talent executive with a proven track record in aligning talent strategies with with business objectives to drive growth and enhance organizational performance. Expert in building and cultivating high-performing teams and implementing effective performance management systems, with a deep understanding of company culture and strategic business insight. Skilled in integrating executive coaching principles to build coaching cultures and enhance leadership. Welcome, Natalie.
Thanks very much, Paula. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We will have a conversation, you and me, and we will answer questions at the end of the session. So all the attendees, you can start typing your questions in the chat box that is below. Okay, Natalie. The first question that I have for you, and I think that what we've been hearing from on the ground is what's happening to the teams right now from a people perspective. What are you seeing on the ground?
Mm. Yeah, good question. I think that's top of mind for everybody. Everybody wants to know what's going on with everybody else. Our ecosystem is small, but that's kind of what we're talking about right now. Obviously, in the last 6 days, it has been calmer in the skies for anybody that is currently in the UAE. I think we've all felt that. There is some general feeling of positivity. I've personally seen more people returning over the weekend as well. Um, However, I think the surface still looks calmer than it really is. The fact is there have been job losses. It's very real in particular F&B, hospitality and travel, retail, real estate, of course. And some of these are at scale as well. I'd say the majority of the ecosystem is in quite a different place. They're probably not actively cutting, maybe a little frozen, maybe still waiting to see what's happening. In some cases, hiring has paused. In others, there are still vital hires that need to be made, and they're still going ahead, actually. And I think if you see reports from people that run recruitment firms, they're still reporting that it's quite active. So that's positive, and certainly some subsectors of the tech industry are doing better than others. A few VCs I've spoken to said that some have managed to thrive with new opportunities. So it's not all doom and gloom. I do like to try and stay positive and not false optimism. I think everyone's just watching to see what happens next, of course. Being frozen, though, it can be a problem in itself. Some of the key themes I'm seeing is what's called vicarious trauma. So in teams, in your employees, it's compassion fatigue. So even though it might not directly impact you, some people are very highly empathetic and they're taking on the trauma of other people, whether they're outside of country, Lebanon, for example, companies that are getting hit very hard at the moment, or from their peers and their colleagues that they work with. So this, even if it's not directly impacting them, they might not be fine because they just have this compassion fatigue. I think in the UAE, there's some psychologists that have been talking about this. Also, the uncertainty paralysis is going on. If leadership is quiet, then employees don't assume that things are okay. They actually assume the worst. They'll fill in the gaps in the silence, often with negativity, and they see that silence from their leadership team is more indifference rather than neutrality. And then just as expats in general, obviously we're very highly expat populated here, as we all know. Every single one of us, all of us, we're managing so many different questions. It's completely unrelated to our job and our company, even if our company might be doing well at the moment. What's going on from a personal perspective? I know people that are really struggling with what decisions to make, their family safety, their personal safety, their visa implications, what happens with extended absence. then whether their job will exist. And it's just a significant cognitive load on top of trying to do your day job. I do know friends that are the strongest people I know that are still having days or a few days at a time where they're really struggling to just manage to do normal work. It's a very surreal situation we're in, isn't it? I think it's very hard to mentally process for any of us, as pragmatic as we might be and calm. I think this is something that's probably bubbling under the surface for a lot of people. And as a leader, you probably don't know everyone's personal situation that well, even if you're having conversation with them. So there's a little false sense of security now. The team you have now might not be sticking around. We simply don't know. And I think the individuals don't know. There's a lot of people that are job hugging, they're staying put, not out of loyalty, but just out of necessity for now while they weigh up their options. And they're probably declining in engagement as well. So they might be physically present, they might be showing up to the meetings, etc., but they might be mentally checking out. They might be looking to move into a different industry altogether where they feel there's more security, or leave the country, and then making those plans as well. So yeah, complacency is something I think that is there. We'll talk about that more when we talk about, making job cuts, etc., retaining key people. It's something that you just won't see coming, and it's something that's very important to plan for.
So, at the moment, as a consultant, what is the main question topic that you get asked with the current situation from the businesses?
Lots, but not that one actually. I think it's not top of mind, and I'm really glad to raise it here, because it should be. What's talent going to look like after this? Are people still going to want to move here? We've got so many unanswered questions that I think basically we just discuss amongst ourselves in the ecosystem, whether it's founders, VCs, other investors, employees. It's the fact that no one knows. So we're kind of sharing that. But what's going to happen to talent? Yeah, I think there is a lack of longer term vision, mainly for those reasons that we just don't know. But I think it's so important to be considering those options. Um, I mean, if I'm happy to jump to my, kind of the section that I was going to talk about on talent actually, because it is quite important and it's quite recent. I was at the RSA Sandbox kickoff meeting yesterday, so with a lot of the VC team there and a lot of new founders as well. I've got one example. I recently hired for a client two separate roles, both international relocations, both accepted the job offers at the beginning of the conflict. One of those people is from the UK. He rescinded the acceptance and decided, no, my family doesn't want me moving there. I'm not going to relocate. The other person's in Canada. He's like, absolutely, I'm still moving. So it's very polarized. We just don't know. I think from talking to especially VCs, there is a fear that people will not want to relocate here. I don't believe that to be true. But I know it's not true. I mean, it is happening. It's certainly there's going to be fewer people wanting to relocate. What I think is interesting is seeing the people that see the opportunity here. Now, maybe they've had some kind of connection to the region previously, and they've understood how we've coped so well with dealing with previous crises, and they believe the UAE especially, or the GCC, will come out, will emerge very strongly when this is over, whatever over is going to be. It's another discussion. And so they've maybe got a little faith, and they're seeing the opportunities. If we look at all the businesses that were born out of the COVID crisis or pivoted very successfully after that, we do have a great skill here in that people become very bullish, very positive and optimistic, and they work together, as well as the government, of course, but the nature of people in the region, expats as well as locals, we do push forward with a vigor. And I think, if talent have felt that or have had family members here before, maybe that's the type of person that's going to see it as an opportunity for them to have a real impact on a business and bring that skill, set here. Also, there are a lot of people that have been looking with admiration from afar at just how well the UAE especially has managed this conflict. They come from countries where they have no trust in their government, and they look at us and they're quite envious, really, of how well the expats are welcomed, how we're looked after on par with Emiratis. That could be something. I mean, I've yet to have those distinct conversations. As I do, I'm happy to share all of those thoughts with the broader market. But I do think that's something that could happen. So that's one type of talent, right? Is international relocations, which we've always done really well. And I think 95% of my hires over the last 17 years have been international relocations. We've got existing in region talents. Some of these will be disengaging right now. This is a group that I think that probably concerns me the most. And as a founder or an investor, as a VC, it should concern you also. Just because things seem okay on the surface, they could be the real high performers. They weren't in the cuts. They didn't receive any salary cuts, or, and they're working in what's seen as an industry that is, going to thrive through this, or maybe still retain buoyancy. If companies aren't handling these things well, it will turn off some of your top talent. So if you've got poor communication or chaotic cost cuts, and you're choosing the wrong people to lose, leaders who disengage themselves and went quite quiet, they might already be reassessing their options. Yesterday, someone told me that they know of a CFO that's looking to leave, a very high performing CFO that will be leaving in a few months and is looking at their options. So it's real and it's happening. So you can't ever rest on your laurels. So even with the market contracting, somewhat with hiring freezes, there will be opportunities for the right talents. And I think they're going to make themselves very quietly and confidentially known. But then when things stabilize, which they will move fast, as we know from previous crises, right? So the companies that treated their people well during this period, and if they did it well in COVID as well, they're the ones that are going to retain talent and absorb these great talents that are looking around. Then there's the third kind of buckets of talent, which is the ones that have already been displaced. So the people that have unfortunately been dramatically impacted by the crisis and have lost their jobs. That's it. So it's created a pool of available talents from the affected sectors. I'm hoping that people don't take advantage of those that are feeling more desperate with lower salaries. That's something that I would certainly not advocate for. But there are genuine hiring opportunities right now, and I would suggest to engage with these people. I think, they know that we're still in a period of uncertainty, but make the connections, start having the conversations. So when the time is right, you've kind of already sold yourself as a business, and you can then have access to this talent, which you might not have had access to before. Once again, it's really important if we're going to have a reduction in the amount of international talent moving here, which is inevitable, but we just don't know the percentage yet. So yeah, our attractiveness as a international talent hub, we have to change our positioning as well. The way that we've sold Dubai over the years, I definitely have said on more than 100 occasions that we're second or first or second safest country in the world. Our narrative has to change. We can't be performatively optimistic and say that nothing's changed when it really has. So I think that's something that myself and what I do in my job and how I advise others, that's going to have to change significantly. And I think that also is a huge mindset change for all of us, because we're also positive about him. We can still remain positive, but that narrative will change slightly. So I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, Paula, but definitely something for me to be thinking about and working on with clients, and how we communicate with future candidates.
And I have a question going back to the second bucket that you mentioned. So people
Yeah.
that are resigning from their jobs at the moment in the
Yes.
region. What is the key driver for that? Is it internal communication, lack of communication, conflict handling, or what are the key drivers of those
Yeah.
people that, or even fear to the region? What is
There's
it?
very few people resigning, but they are planning their exit, right? So
Hmm.
they're putting their CVs up to date. They're starting to talk to people like myself, just let it be known, even if they're not immediately impacted. But it's leadership. Everything is leadership and everything is communication.
Hmm.
So poor leadership, say, as I said, leaders that are disengaging themselves, it's a whole other issue. Founder mental wellness at this stage, by the
Yeah.
way, I am not taking anything for granted. It is enormous, the pressure. The
Mm.
same as I said before with the, people suffering from, excess compassion for
Mm.
others. It's the same for founders, especially if you're going through a rocky time. So I'm not putting blame on anyone here, but some caveats and things to look out for. So yeah, if the method of your restructuring has been chaotic, if you've perhaps taken away some vital people that actually do the work from the workforce that creates such an extra burden on others, or if there's been any signs of favoritism through the restructuring process,
Mhm.
that's going to upset some of your talents. That's what's going to make them turn off. Say lack of communication is everything. Lack of communication or poor communication, lack of understanding, lack of empathy.
Mhm.
Um, Look, one key thing I've been thinking about a lot is just how different this is to COVID. It really is. There are some similarities, of course, but that is different. So also, just because of the way you handled something in COVID doesn't mean it's the right way to handle it now. That was one, it was global, but even in the region, we were all impacted pretty much in the same way in terms of overnight, you're all remote. There's no question. I have heard of some companies that are forcing people back into the office. I think forcing is a strong word. No, some have been forcing, I have to
Mhm.
say. I've heard some people that are very upset with their employers.
Mhm.
I believe in an office where you can and where it's safe. But the way that you communicate that return to office, once again, you've got to look at the individuals and what their personal circumstances are. We've got remote school learning. I'm thankful mine are beyond that now, but mine were COVID kids in there. I've been through it. Um, we have to look at people as individuals as well. One of the key things is not just founders, but your leadership team as well, because you probably, unless you've got a very small business, you can't be around everybody. You have to really put your faith in your managers that they are leading ethically and morally at the highest standard, and they're the ones that are communicating, understanding everybody's individual circumstances to try and work out how best they need to be managed during this time. Um, it's hard to not have favoritism accusations if you're suggesting that other people can stay remote or out of country. That's a massive issue right now, and others are in country. So it really just comes down to one, the communication, and two, the way that the restructuring or cost cutting is done. Um, they're going to be the main reasons. Aside from the obvious, I don't think my industry is going to pick up as quickly as others. So just having, without any problems in leadership, but just not having as much faith that you're in the right place. For example, F&B, tourism, we
Mhm.
just don't know. I still believe, knowing friends that are still planning to travel to Dubai next month, and even over the summer for holidays. But once again, highly polarized, and a lot of people have no plans to come on holiday here until 2027. So yeah, there's some sectors that are going to be hit. So
Mhm.
people will be hedging their bets on their own careers, understandably.
And moving now for a more founder perspective, when a founder needs to reduce headcount
Mhm.
due to a crisis or any kind of situation, what do they need to know?
First of all, the legalities. You can restructure, you can lose people for that reason. You do have to pay their gratuity within 14 days. You have to pay their unpaid leave, and you have to pay anything else that's due to them. There is no way to terminate instantly. So that's also a huge calculation when you're cutting costs. I definitely don't want people to use that as a reason to not lose somebody because their gratuity is higher than the other. That could then compound some of the previous points I've raised about, the wrong people are leaving the business. So following procedure is very important. One procedural, error could mean months of disputes and extra costs that actually dwarf the savings that you were hoping for anyway. I'd say, first of all, check. The Dubai government has announced this 1 billion relief package. I'm not quite sure yet who it's going to impact. I know there are things like some, delays in fees and payment plans, etc. I would definitely speak to DIFC has one separate one, and maybe there's another mainland one. I definitely look at that first of all, so you've got a really clear picture of what your exposure is. And then obviously the headcount reduction should be, probably more of a last resort. So the process of this does define you as an employer, and it will stick with you and your employer brand for years to come. We have a very small ecosystem, even globally. People talk. I've spoken to candidates before, like post-COVID, in different countries, and they knew someone that worked at somewhere that didn't have a good or fair process. So the rest of the world will be hearing about these things. So it's so important. So I think following the legal process as well, but being more ethical. So how you're exiting people. I do a lot of restructuring before this happens. Sadly, yes, I probably might be doing a bit more of it. But the way that you communicate, I'm a huge advocate for the way that you do this so that you're not burning your employees. You're letting them go with dignity and grace, obviously everything that they're entitled to as well. Full presence, individual conversations, not group calls, not Zooms without a camera. Prepare very well in advance, have everything ready before you have the conversation, that we're letting you go, of course, but here's what you're going to receive. Here's the dates you're going to receive everything. Here's exactly what you're entitled to. Here's what will happen with your visa, your medical. Once again, if people are left without information, they can fill the gaps in with something that's completely incorrect or grossly exaggerated in a negative way. It helps them stay calm, offer them any resources. In restructuring, I always offer my helpers career guidance, book a session post termination to help give them a list of reputable recruitment agencies in their field that might be able to help them. I maintain that this is a very important part of restructuring, treating everybody like a really human being. Explore alternatives as well, though. Can they be moved to another project? Can hours be reduced with consent, perhaps with, remote schooling? Some people might want to take that. So it's not necessarily a blanket decision that you can make. Look at what the options are available to you. Give references as well. Make recommendations where you can. I know it's incredibly hard in this market. People are queuing up for recommendations and networking and connections as well, but they're your employees, so you do kind of owe them. But the main thing is, yes, stay legal and stay ethical. The other things that you can look at as well, though, are salary reductions. So I know this is happening a lot. Some companies are choosing to cut a bit deeper at the senior level on the basis that they can probably afford to take less, and then a smaller cut for more junior levels, because they're just not earning as much and still need to make a standard cost of living. Others are doing a blanket reduction. Now, whether or not you're saying to people this is permanent or this is going to be for X amount of time, here lies the problem. We don't know how long this is going to last. So it's very important not to misguide or make promises that you simply can't keep. The other is unpaid leave, putting people on unpaid leave. Now, the very, very important legal part of this is that you can't do any of this without mutual agreement from the employee. And whether we're in this kind of crisis or not, this is the law. There's no extenuating circumstances right now for how this is treated. You are expected to have their mutual agreements. If an employee refuses to do that, sadly, you are able to include them in the restructure once again, paying them everything. Now, I think also it is important to understand people's situations. I don't know many people that can absorb a long-term salary cut genuinely. So I know this is incredibly hard. It's how long's a piece of string? It's and once again, you can't be accused of too much favoritism, but there might be extenuating circumstances. Try and be creative and do try and reach that agreement with the employee. Something I've heard people suggesting, whether or not they've finalized it, is, a new kind of ESOP distribution to those that are staying, to encourage them. It's, we'll kind of take from one hand, but we'll give with another. Maybe, bringing forward vesting schedules as well for people so that, they're going to get a lump sum vested within 6 months if they stay rather than further down the line. Try and be creative. I mean, these are the conversations I'm having. Just understand what your options can be, and try and kind of tailor them to each individual as much as you can.
And how should a founder think about reshaping the team for the reality they're in at the moment?
So, look, after COVID, as we all know, we did come back pretty well, on the most part, with so much enthusiasm. I've certainly seen this, hence why I've been probably doing some restructuring, to be quite honest. A lot of overhiring has occurred. A lot of companies are reaching a certain scale. The headcount is increasing, the revenue is not. So it's a really great time to relook at that. There's been layers of management put in that for the current situation, they are more strategic and directive rather than executional. I think you have to look at, your business was built for what's happened in the last 18 months on the most part. Now you need to look at what's going to get you through, well, at least the next 12 to 18 months, right? And so that could be quite different. Um, it's, looking at the risk now, the makeup of your business could be quite different. And I know this is a huge strategic question. So what are we going to focus on? Let's start from scratch. When I'm restructuring, I always ask people to do that on a department level. Knowing what you know now, today, about your business and what's happening in the next 6 months, if you had to build your team from scratch, take names, take job titles out of it for now, what do you need to focus on? Kind of critically map every outcome, and then what areas are super important to deliver. Now, I know some businesses are stopping operations in certain countries or cities. Um, these are the conversations you have first. So although I said like indecision is can be problematic and costly, but this is the kind of decision that I wouldn't want anybody to take very swiftly also, because the homework has to be done before even starting the restructure. It's rather than I just need to cut 20% of cost. I don't think that's going to be very helpful for anybody, because none of our businesses will be working in exactly the same way. So there's a big difference between making it smaller now and making it better for the environment we are currently in. And instead of just who can we lose, look at intentional redesign with what work actually drives the outcome that we need in the next 12 to 18 months, and who is best positioned to do it. Now, often I find that the people that advocate for themselves, the loud people in businesses, they might not necessarily be the ones that are doing the essential work right now.
Mm.
The quiet people, the ones that are, focusing on something that might not seem as significant, but is absolutely business critical. That's what you need to focus on. So you're then mapping every role to every outcome, whether that's customer delivery, product function, or anything regulatory, depending on your business. There's no one size fits all, of course. And the restructuring comes not because anybody is underperforming, it's just the role isn't anchored to the survival of the business right now. And obviously these decisions, they can be cut deeper depending on what subsector of the industry you're in. Once again, management layers, as I say, this is an area where a lot of companies have hit. The downsizing that I've seen so far, there's been quite a lot of management hits. Obviously, they are expensive, but these layers have been created as a company has scaled, and maybe scaled too fast in terms of headcount. So good time to recalibrate. And I say this with absolute humanity because I care deeply about people, but this is business survival we're talking about. So I'm not talking about individuals here. Rapid scaling everywhere has caused this problem. Nobody is alone in this. I have founders that feel very upset or defeated that they've had to go through this even prior to the conflict. Please don't. Yeah, it's something that is happening across the board and more than you think. So design for the next 18 months, not the previous ones. Your company is going to look different. Obviously, remain legal. There might be some businesses that have Emiratization or Saudiization targets, in terms of compliance. So be very mindful of that as another part of it. Leaner teams where they have explicit role design and visible decision rights, and real shared ownership of outcomes can definitely outperform a 40-person team, where there's ambiguity and people don't know who's owning what. It could also be a great opportunity to give people development. So they're making lateral moves, or they're taking on extra projects. This is not to pile work onto them, but in businesses where we often reach a glass ceiling for some of our employees and we can't promote them, but they want to be challenged, they want to learn, there could be an opportunity there to use it as a development tool as well. Once again, everything I'm saying is in the most ethical way possible, not to make one person do three people's jobs.
And how do you hold on to these people that you cannot afford to lose apart from learning, etc.?
Yeah, so that's one thing. So say lateral, there may be some vertical moves for them as well. This does matter enormous to me. I'm normally very direct about this. As I said before, and I'll probably say it a few more times, but how you treat people is one of the most significant competitive differentiators that you'll have. And the war for talent is going to happen again, and it's going to be real after this. The ones that come out of this stronger will have a structural advantage because of how they've managed this and retained their key players. So your key staff, the actual replacement of them can cost anything from 50 to 200% of their salary, right? So firstly, identify who these people are. It's not just the most visible. It's not just the biggest advocates for themselves. Who's doing the work that matters now and for the next 12 months? As I said, looking at restructuring ESOP packages could be a really valuable tool to retain people in their business, certainly for the next 6 to 12 months, which I think if we look at what we're April now, if we look at our summer potential lull, a different conversation, whether that's going to happen again now if this conflict ends in the near future. Q4 is normally quite busy, but yeah, certainly holding on to them till the end of the year, I think is going to be vital. What you can do, radical transparency. Your key players are close to the business. So even if you're not saying anything, they're going to know something's wrong. And that fear of uncertainty is usually more paralyzing than the truth. So be straight with them. Make sure they understand the financial reality, but that they believe leadership is being very honest with them. It's a fact that the employees do stay longer, significantly longer, with businesses that have been, operating from a place of truth and, yeah, instead of something with like a vacuum of information. Manager quality. I think we talk about this all the time in the region. Poor management. I think research attributes about 70% variance in team engagements anyway, depending on the manager. You have to have really strong conversations with yourself and with your leadership team, who's actually leading well. And in a crisis, your first line manager is the one that's going to impact you the most. So if people are recognizing that they have some actual leadership deficiencies within their team, that needs to be addressed. People leave managers, not jobs. It's a cliche, but it's really true. It's so true. I don't know if anyone's doing here like employee surveys. A lot of people don't answer them honestly because they don't think it's anonymized. But if you've got whispers of things, if you've got one team where there's consistently quite a higher turnover year on year of people, you've got a manager problem. 9 times out of 10. So you've got to be really honest with yourself. You've got to uncover these things first because that's going to be more damaging. Yeah, that might be somebody that is part of your restructure plan, right? Because that's not going to help with your retention as well. So know who your weakest managers are, not in terms of their work performance, but in their people leadership. Everything that's going on now is about, I think, people leadership. The execution is, of course, we're expecting it to be there. But how you're handling your people really, really matters. Internal mobility, as I said, there might be a hiring freeze. Look at what capabilities the people in the team have. I do, with all of my clients, role analysis of every individual. I want to know what you studied. I want to know what other skills you've got that currently aren't being used. What are your ambitions for the future? There are people that spend their lives, especially now, looking at things like AI. Could be anything. They're training themselves on something that, as an employee, you don't know anything about. Can you use that somewhere in the business where you were actually looking to hire? Now, I have to say, this is good practice. You should be doing this all the time anyway, but even more so now. So yeah, make it deliberate. Don't let it happen by accident. The same as you're not putting things onto people You're genuinely offering them an opportunity if they want to take it. This also helps you weed out the people that are committed and those that aren't. If they see that and they really want to take the bull by their horns and do it, great. You've got an engaged employee. So that really helps you identify those. And then telling people, be honest with them. We don't want to lose you. We can't afford to lose you. Tell them why, exactly why, especially in a market where others are cutting. And make sure, once again, you're very truthful. People need to feel that love. They need to feel heard. If they're not getting told that they're doing a good job, and I say that, that's the high level statement, but always tell them exactly why they're doing a good job. They might not feel it. You might think your employees, oh, yeah, they know they're doing a good job. I promise you, they don't. Not everyone does. There's a very high percentage of people in every company that only know when it comes to their appraisal time. So really, really important. Sit them down one-to-one, make it personal, understand what their future career plans are, how you as a business can help them, and how you as a human being can help them as a human being. They will buy into that in the most transparent way possible, and you will have that faith and connection with them, and then you're able to show your own vulnerabilities as a business in terms of your financial standing, and yeah, not fear mongering at all, but being honest, and the right employees will commit to you and will want to see you through this crisis and help you come out of it.
And what if those employees or other employees don't want to come back to the region?
Mm. I think this is probably one of the biggest questions, and it's really complex. And honestly, there is no clean answer. This is where it's so different to COVID, right? We were all in the same boat, not just globally, but certainly as the region, we were all stuck here. We didn't have a choice. And then when things opened up, there was no reason for people to not want to come in the office. I would say, apart from those with maybe a chronic health condition, which I do know happened, understandable. So it's very difficult because I had this conversation at lunch on Sunday. Somebody said with COVID, we had the vaccine. So the vaccine was end game. It was giving people hope that this was going to be over. For now, we don't have that answer yet. Companies, my clients, are panicking a little of, well, what do we do if? I'm like, okay, I think we have to cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's think about the potential scenarios, and that's what we'll discuss now. So, firstly, just every 2 weeks, make sure you're keeping people updated, either a weekly or a bi-weekly town hall as a founder or leadership team anyway. And the same that the KHDA is doing with the schools. I mean, we haven't heard anything yet, so they are due back Monday, but just keeping people up to date and just doing, week by week or 2 weeks by 2 weeks, right? You can stay remote, you can stay remote. If, for example, the conflict comes to an end in the next couple of weeks, I know we have summer coming up. There's a lot of questions of, will people just stay away from the summer for the summer? I don't believe that they should. I think post-COVID, I recall that summer being a lot busier in Dubai. People were actually really keen to get back together, and there was so much catching up to do, or they'd pivoted and they were running towards, being successful again. So people might want to come together. Now, it's up to each company. Maybe you do, as founders, want to be not here in the summer because you've stuck it out this far. That's going to be your choice. I think there are going to be some difficult conversations. I've got one friend that I know that's already said that she's not coming back until September. Everyone else has stayed. There is, once again, highly polarized. The people that recently moved to the region are the ones that tended to have left first. Those like myself, 18 years in, this is home. It's not as easy for us to up and leave. So we have more commitment. I had in one client, I know some names on here that know this client as well. They Most of their staff are less than a year old. And so it was those with family pressures. And I think the same family pressures are stopping them from returning, but they're incredible staff. So what do you do? And I think that's going to depend on the person. If it's a business critical role and it was an incredible either recent hire or a long-term hire that you've had, and they're genuinely engaged, but that they're genuinely fearful of coming back to the region and have a valid reason, I would make an exception. Otherwise, I do see companies stating that you're just going to have to return back. But we just don't know. If the conflict doesn't end until, let's say, June, I'm sure most companies will then be looking at, okay, end of August, beginning of Q4 as normal, the post-summer break to come back. It's something you just have the conversation. Once again, get to know your people as individuals. How are they feeling? Do they have any thoughts long term? How are they doing? Can you sense who of your team are really, really struggling? Can you sense those? I can sense in my friend, I know that she's super, super happy where she is in the UK, but I know that she's not that happy that she ever wants to permanently relocate. But it's by having conversations and understanding that. And only then can we start. This will be probably a whole nother conversation that we have to have post crisis. Right. How do we now physically get people back to work? Or have you turned into a remote first company? Because that's also a way to look at cost cutting, right? Do you have an office that you actually don't need? Is that an immediate, your renewal's up? Do you just move out of the office for now? And therefore, there's no point in getting a new contract until September, where the same as residents are feeling, we might get a better deal commercially. So that takes the decision out of your hands. You just say to everybody, we are remote first. Maybe we come together for a week in Europe or Asia in the summer. Got clients that are doing that as well. It's really difficult. We don't have a clean answer, do we? I mean, the last 6 days have been much quieter in the skies, definitely feeling a little more positive, but it's day by day. We've not experienced this before. So we just don't know. We can't predict. Like I said, it's very different to COVID.
And in reference to what you just said, what does good leadership actually look like right now?
Communication. Yeah. I mean, it is communication with everybody, with your team, not, and I think most people that I know and are doing this really, really well. Um, what's difficult is managing your own mental health. You've got the stress of as a founder, you've got the stress of your own family, their safety, everything the employee's going through, you're going through 20, 50, 100, 200 times because of them as well. Make sure you have a support system. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be honest without being catastrophic. You know, being honest but not being negative as well. Not sharing too many fears, not being flippant as well. I think one key thing I'm hearing of is some flippancy around people's situation. Oh, get on with it. It's not that bad. You're not in a war zone. And actually, this, I think polarizing is like going to be my word of the quarter, to be honest. I've seen it in personal circles as well. People that stayed somewhat think they're superior to those that have left. I know, Paula, we had this discussion as well. It's just happening in our friendship groups and in our work groups. As a leader, you have to remain impartial to that. You cannot judge people for whatever circumstances have taken them outside of the country for now. If I had a lovely place on the ocean somewhere that was, mine and to go to, yeah, maybe I would have gone as well. But I don't, and this is my home. But for other people, it's very different. So I think being impartial, not judging people, and once again, getting to know them, it just becomes harder. And again, rely on your leadership team. This is where a lot of any business's problems will come, is middle management layers always. I'm sorry to say, but it is. It can be done really well. You have to rely on them. You have to rely on them to be in touch with all of their people, creating, the trees. Anyone with kids at school, there's these communication trees where if there's a crisis, that someone calls these people, they call each, the network effect. Make sure that's in place. Actually set up a schedule and has everybody, have you spoken to each of your team? Are they speaking to their peers? It is crisis management. I come from investment banking and we had contingency planning. Being in London, the threat of bombings, it seemed bizarre, but it was 25 years ago. We had, off-site premises where we would take turns and go, and if there was any threats, that key skeleton staff would go and work off site. It was before we had the cloud. So a lot of it was physical documentation, fax machines and Swift machines. I'm showing my age now, but investment banking, that was it. So we kind of have to be thinking more about contingency planning. I think after COVID, we got a bit complacent. I don't think any of us, myself included, thought that we would be experiencing such a crisis as this. But going forward, things like, right, what is your communication tree? Who is responsible for communicating with who and making sure you're just having a human catch up, right? I think humanity is the key to everything at the moment.
And what levers do founders have on people costs overall beyond headcount?
Um, well, negotiating rental contracts. I've heard some people trying to negotiate their commercial rent down. They've been told no. But there's always, as you know, personally, there's landlords that are more open-minded. They'd rather you don't give notice because the chances of them re-renting any property right now are massively lower. Try and renegotiate where you can. So yeah, your commercial premises. Licenses that you're using, there's a lot of companies that are using a lot of ATS, HR recruitment tools. Is there a potential to negotiate with them, kind of citing force majeure, or just in terms of client relationship, right? A lot of these are offshore. Can we pause? Because a lot of companies definitely aren't hiring. You might not be using a lot of these tools for employee surveys, anything like that. Just other vendor and SaaS commitments that you've got. I mean, they add up. They add up hugely. I think be really creative in thinking about going through with a fine tooth comb. Where are the other costs? I know the easiest one because the biggest one is people, but yeah, I think you have to show others, and this is what also shows good leadership. We haven't directly just gone for people. We are looking at other ways. Yeah, I know we're not in office, but as an example, yes, we normally have lunches and we do these entertaining things, or we pay certain things, or we have lots of Diet Coke in the fridge. Showing people that you're being frugal in other ways rather than just impacting the employees.
Hmm. Okay. And we will move now to the Q&A. So we
Mhm.
have the first question, and they say, if you had to rank based on your experience, what would be the ideal order to cut costs in your team, being one, layoffs, two, reduced work week, three, rotational unpaid leave, and three, temporary salary cuts?
It depends on your business. If I have a client that's in hospitality, everything fell off a cliff immediately. It happened to, if anyone knew Munch On at the time of COVID, they provided lunches to offices. So the day that we got locked down and we're all at home, the revenue went to zero in a day. So you're in a different position then. So with those type of businesses, you're looking at the biggest impact as quickly as possible. It's no good to just do, drip feeds the cuts because that causes a lot more uncertainty. And so it does depend on the business. If you need people executing, don't send them off on unpaid leave. Um, Once again, take your time for these decisions. There is no cut and paste. There's no PDF document of this is what you should do. It's unique to you. Every business is a living, breathing organism. So once again, the sequence would be look at what you're entitled to with the government in terms of the help that they're providing, that 1 billion dirham support package. Look at your business. What do you need for the next 12 months? Kind of forget what you've had before and restructure, critically map that. What are the functions that you're going to need? Now, there will be functions that you need to keep on, but there may be the ones that can be more flexible. I would offer it to anybody anyway, if they want a little more flexibility, even if you just are not working on a Friday, it's a 20% cut, right? So I think it does make sense as long as your business can still keep functioning. And having done multiple restructures, as scary as it seems for companies and the heads of function are like, I can't possibly do it without these people. Do you know what? Every time they do, and it's fine. I'm not saying people are completely, expendable, but you'd be surprised you can do more with less when you really need to. Whole different conversation about lack of automation in a lot of outdated functions, but something to also address when you're looking at the new structure of your company. So once again, I'm sorry that there's not a quick answer to that. I'm happy to talk to anyone after this, by the way. I mean, I think I know most of you on here by the looks of it. But you can ping me and I'm happy to talk through just what's going on in your company and what would make more sense because it's very personalized.
Thank you. So the next question is, what do you think are the top two opportunities for any business or people in this current situation, what they should focus on?
What do you mean as a leader, as a founder?
Yeah, I guess so, as a founder.
Ah, I think differentiating yourself from others, being the one that is so visible to your team, so that when this is over, when we start to come out of it, or even now, actually, you want your employees are your best branding tool, and it's not used enough. It doesn't cost you anything really, but you want your employees talking to everyone. My employer has been so amazing throughout this. I feel so supported. I feel so safe to address my concerns. I know exactly what's going on in the business. Yeah, I feel that they've shared everything. That to be to be showing that point of difference. Sadly, our bar is pretty low for a lot of things when it comes to how businesses treat their people. I'm yeah not afraid to mince my words, and I think everyone knows this. Like toxicity is quite rife in a lot of businesses in some shape or form. Be better, be the best that you absolutely can be to your people because they are talking to everybody. They're talking to their families in their home countries. They are telling the world. So make sure that narrative is really good. You're just treating them absolutely in the best way they can be. And even if it doesn't mean that you can't pay them as much, maybe, or they're suffering financially in some way, still treat them the very best that you can. You will get loyalty, you will get a stronger employer brand in the market, you will have the talent knocking at your door. That's your absolute vital opportunity right now. On the other side, in terms of work opportunity, I think it very much depends on what industry you're in. There are companies that pivoted quite dramatically and very swiftly during COVID. If you're one of those that there could be opportunities, utilizing some of your existing team, it's very real. I think I look at, a few companies that it was 6 years ago, obviously, but they became much more digitized in a lot of ways. We're obviously beyond that now. I think some fintechs are probably doing a lot better than other ecosystems. But I think Remote Pass was one that was doing something different. I think it had like physical office space, but then they pivoted to employee of record because they realized, they needed that as a service. So that was a really successful pivot. So that's where bring your great minds together and see what opportunities there are in changing could change your entire product actually.
Thank you. And what does the talent market in the UAE look like in 6 to 12 months if the conflict continues?
I wish I had a crystal ball. Look, every day that it goes on, and I'm saying this pre last Wednesday. Last Wednesday was the first night's sleep I'd had since it started. I'm an insomniac anyway, but it's a very stressful situation for all, even though I'm outwardly very calm and I'm a founder therapist, I've been told. I quite happily absorb all of this, but still, every day that it goes on, people are questioning differently. They're getting exhausted. So even though we have all this talent that's still here now, if it goes on another month, will that fatigue really set in? And people say, do you know what? Had enough. I'm exhausted. The flip-flopping around, with decision making obviously out of all of our hands. There's a great opportunity in Singapore. There's a great opportunity in London or Europe. Oh, and the summer's coming as well. Honestly, who knows? I think once again, like schools going back, like bringing your people remotely, my stance on this is going to change week by week. I mean, a lot of my job, I'm doing, executive hiring. I'm reaching out to people, so I get a good temperature gauge of what's going on. I still get people that are in region reaching out to me, so I will try and kind of retain that information and share it where possible to say what's going on because there's moving goalposts. Like I said, with COVID, we had the vaccine as more of the beginning of the end. Yes, this 6 days feels a bit comfortable, but I don't think anyone is resting on their laurels and thinking this is it until it is. I don't want to jinx anything, and I'm touching wood. But yeah, we have to see. But each day it becomes more challenging. I'm still seeing a lot of moving trucks around. I live in a community. Um, People are going. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but like I said, I still think it's an exciting time to get some other talent that sees the opportunity that's here. But it's going to be harder. Going to have to be more selective. You're going to have to take your time hiring and just getting the right people in and not taking advantage of those that are maybe a little desperate, even if they are. I definitely don't want to hear any salary cuts from anybody, as in, when we've come out of this because someone is desperate, that we'll just pay them lower than they're actually, deserved, because these people will find out, by the way. They'll know that it's not market rate, and they'll be looking for their next opportunity as soon as they've been onboarded, basically.
And this is a question that I have also in regards to this. Do you think that when the conflict stops and when the region starts to pike in terms of, let's say, yeah, like people comfortable coming in again, etc., do
Yeah.
you think the salaries will be like similar to 5 years ago or similar to what we're seeing now?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I say every day that it goes on, or every week that it goes on, might be a different answer. There is going to be, I remember having a conversation on Business Breakfast about the war on talent. It was the buzz term, the buzz phrase that we were all using post COVID. We came out of it. We might have that again, but the difference is we'll just have less people here, so it might be worse. Um, does that mean we'll have to pay more to get the people we want? Quite possibly. But I don't see that as a negative. For anyone that knows me, I'm the biggest advocate of do more with less. Hire great quality, great caliber people that not only are strategic, but they execute as well. This is a chance to recalibrate the way that your business works. A lot of founders come to me and like, oh, we can't hire the right people, we turnover, and it's quite common. This is a time where, once again, with this is what my business needs to achieve in 12 months. This is the skill set, the competency set, and the level of experience I need to achieve that. Where do I bust the budget? Like, where do I hire my game changing talent? So I'm not saying your entire business is all the game changing talent, but identify those areas. It's different for each business, and then target that person. If you've managed to get a really strong employer brand, they're going to be more attracted to you than potentially your competitor. So everything you're doing now is going to set you up for future success in that war on talent, which is going to be coming. There will be people that are moving in the market. There will be people reducing their salaries. Like I say, I never advocate for that. It's short term, very short term gain for a business because they won't stay. Get the best people. And yeah, you might have to pay a little more. But to be honest, I think you should be anyway, even prior to the complex, in the right areas. So if you need to achieve something specific, get the person that can do exactly that and has got a proven track record of it. So I'll always advocate for quality where it's needed. In other times, I'll say, no, that's that's the job that you can pay that much. That's fine. I'm not going to benchmark you in our ecosystem as well. You can't benchmark against DP World or Emirates or a big multinational. It's apples and oranges you're comparing. But in our industry, in our ecosystem, yeah, I think for the right people, going to go up a little.
That's good. Thank you so much, Natalie. I think we are over
It's a
time
pleasure.
now. It was
We
a
are. If anyone has any other questions, they
exactly.
can contact me directly. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, I think.
Exactly. And if not, reach out
Happy
to
to
us and
answer.
we will connect you. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
everyone who attended, and
Thanks,
thank you,
Paula.
Natalie,
Thanks for
once again.
attending.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Stay
Bye
safe,
bye.
everyone. Bye bye.